So then, just before I get into today's video, I thought I've got to add this segment to it because I'm just editing the video now and have seen online that Alton Towers have in fact submitted planning documents for a structure very similar to survival games at Thorpe Park, which they are planning on putting next to the Curse at Alton Manor. And this has obviously caused people to speculate, given that it looks a lot like the survival games building that we have at Thorpe Park. Is it going to be used for Scarefest for a maze? Now, I thought I have to mention this before the video because I kind of structured the video about points that have been happening at the park and will it mean that Scarefest is going to be better than ever. I thought I need to mention it because if anything, I personally believe that this backs my point up more, but I don't want people watching it confused going, well, why hasn't he spoke about this? It's purely because at the time of recording, this wasn't public information, or if it was, I had no idea about it. So please do bear that in mind. I do apologise. I seem to have a brilliant luck for recording a video and then afterwards parts of information relevant to that video become public. My apologies, but yes, please do just bear in mind the reason that this hasn't been mentioned in the video is because I did not know about it at the time of recording it. But anyways, enjoy the video. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, this video is purely based on how I've interpreted information of what we know is happening at Alton Towers throughout the 2024 season and what is coming to Alton Towers, and is also based on how I have interpreted bits of information that the park has announced. And I'll be honest, this season for Alton Towers is looking very promising, and in fact is one of the most promising seasons that I've ever known Alton Towers to have. Now, obviously that is an interpretation on my part. And I do believe this is partly due to the park's new divisional director, Bianca Samet, who obviously stepped into her role at the beginning of 2023, and she stated that she used 2023 as a way to sort of find her feet in a UK theme park and observe how a UK theme park runs in contrast to other parks she'd worked at before she sort of weighed in on decisions too heavily, just to make sure that she understood what she was working with. But now I think we're actually starting to see the changes that she wants to implement, or at least the park as a whole is trying to implement, because this isn't always due to one person, this is a park-wide decision. And this positivity that I've sort of felt towards this season at Alton Towers really did begin when we witnessed the Pirate Takeover event. Now, this is an event which I personally didn't get to go to, unfortunately, but friends who did actually get to go to it, I've spoken to and they've spoken about the event, and well, from what they've said, it was absolutely brilliant, and it was very, very well done for a small event, because you've got to consider, from what I've heard, this was literally Mutiny Bay at the park, so obviously themed to pirates, it was kept in Mutiny Bay, but they said in terms of additional things added just for this event, it was incredible. They'd actually added things to the park for it, and it was really like Alton Towers has sort of pushed into the year with a really strong event, whereas in the past we've had some events at the park where they felt a little bit sort of just get the bare minimum that you can to get an event open, whereas this felt, from what I've heard, very, very well done, and like the park had really put a lot of effort into it. And I'll be honest, after hearing about that event, I got quite excited about the 2024 season and what we could see coming to the park. I then kind of completely forgot about it, because we obviously had Thorpe Park who were posting on their social medias about everything they were doing at the park with their sparkle money, which I'll be honest kind of drew me towards Thorpe Park, which has been doing incredible things, but it caused me to kind of forget that Alton Towers has had Sparkle Project money too. And it wasn't until recently that I've heard about the Oblivion post going out, which, if you're not aware of what this was, a sign company that's been working with the Alton Towers Resort did post on their sort of website photos that they'd done with Alton Towers, and then were very quickly taken down for obvious reasons to keep it sort of hush-hush so we can be surprised at the beginning of the season. And although I didn't get to see these, which is very annoying because they sounded incredible from the reaction I've seen online from them, and from what I can understand from people I've spoken to, these photos show that the Edge Arcade building has been very heavily looked at and looks incredible and better than it ever has. The Oblivion drop has had new misters added to it and signs around it, and I'm pretty sure somebody said there was like a outer edge that had been added to the tunnel itself, which is incredible to see. But this then sort of reignited the thought in my head of this is what Alton Towers have been doing with their Sparkle Project money, isn't it? And shows that although they may have not been very vocal about what they've been doing around the park, they clearly have been putting a lot of work into the park, improving things around the resort. And then obviously more recently, we've also had Alton Towers announce their plans for the 2024 season, which outlined incredible things like improving obviously infrastructure like fencing and paths around the park and everything like that. We've also had the exciting announcements that Hex will be coming back better than ever, which is great to hear. And the Skyride will not be opening for this season because it requires major investments, which, although it's easy to look at that in a negative light, it also shows that they're going, well, we need to get work put into this, and they're putting work into the Skyride, which is great to see. And then this obviously ignited the thought in my head, like it always does with Towers news about investments, of giving that things are really looking on the up for Alton Towers. They weren't necessarily in a lull before, but they're looking better than ever for Alton Towers. I'm kind of thinking that we are going to be seeing over the next few years Alton Towers really be pushing up with the improvements around the park and investment, which also includes the events, because as I've said, the Pirate Takeover was very well received and everyone I've spoken to has said nothing but positive things about it really. That and instantly in my head triggered the thought of what does this mean for Scarefest? Because I'll be honest, Scarefest for me last year was the most disappointed I've been at the event for a very long time. And that again is a personal opinion, but I just don't believe that the lineup last year was worth what the money that it cost me to go and to go in the mazes, with a lot of returning mazes, with Darker Steps returning again without really any major changes added to it all, and the attic returning again, which was barely changed with a little part of scene added and a few tiny changes. And the most notable big change being made was Altonville Mine Tours, which was very good, but again that's one thing, with Daz Black's Panic being added, but it wasn't incredible. It wasn't a bad attraction by any means, but it wasn't enough for me to go, wow, what a great event, compared to other events in the UK that I attended, which were just phenomenal. And I do have to say, the reason that I might be more negative about it was because I've been there more, I've visited it more, and it wasn't my first visit to the event. So going in Darker Steps, if you've never done it before, would be better because you don't know what's coming, whereas for me it was kind of a thing of doing the same thing every year now. And this got me thinking that given the Pirate Takeover event was so well received and was really looked into at high detail, could we be seeing the return of Alton Towers Scarefest to its former glory? And I am obviously referring to a few years ago, before I was brave enough to go into scare mazes. You had so many iconic mazes coming out of Alton Towers Scarefest. You had the Sanctuary, obviously themed to the story of the Smiler, and Boiler House is one which I've listened to people's stories and recollections of and looked into the maze itself, and it looked incredible. And there was so many more. You had, I think it was Subspecies as well at the park, just some really impressive mazes. And I'm thinking that now that we've got the investments going into everywhere else at the park, we might be seeing Alton Towers Scarefest return to that former glory, with hopefully this year noticing a large improvement, which I do need to make the point, if we do see it change, it's most likely that it won't be all at once. It will be a thing of, we'll see a small change this year for Scarefest and it get better and better over the next few years. But I was so happy about this possibility that I thought I've got to make a video and see what other people think, because it might be a thing of I've sort of planted the thought in my head and I'm manifesting it to great proportions, thinking it's going to happen this year and it might never happen. So I'd love to know what you think. Do you think that now that we're sort of seeing great improvements being made to the park, because now that Bianca Sammett's really smashing it at the park, to be honest, she really is doing a great job, do we think that now Scarefest might be returning to its former glory? I'd love to know what you think of this. You might think I'm talking absolute waffle. I wouldn't be surprised. I just thought that I'd love to make a video on it because it's how I feel about this, and I thought, well, I always say on this channel that I'm always going to give my true and honest opinion. That's what I always say. Be honest with yourself in this community and be yourself, have your own opinions. So I thought I'll put it out there and see what people think. And if you disagree and think that we might see other things improving around the park instead of Scarefest, and that'll be a thing later down the line, I'd love to hear it, so please do put it in the comments. If you did enjoy this video, please do like and subscribe. It really does make the world of difference and really does help this channel out. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.